The most fascinating subplot of the Cotton Bowl has barely been discussed on the Podcast Daily, but that's about to change. That's right. It's Quinn's Day on the Podcast Daily. That's Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. It is a midweek, 2 days away from the Cotton Bowl matchup with Texas, which has a quarterback who once played at Ohio State. His name is Quinn Ewers. And Berm and I know him relatively well. At least we did. We followed his recruitment with great interest, and we covered his one season with the Buckeyes. That doesn't give us all the insight in the world, but it gives us some to talk about a lot of the things that have been discussed over the last, week, 2 weeks, year, multiple years about him and the way he's viewed at Ohio State and his impact and importance in this matchup. I don't know where to begin, Berm. Should we go all the way back to 2021?
I mean, I think it's important when you say a quarterback who once played for Ohio State, you mean that literally. He did play. He played 3 snaps for Ohio State in the 5 months that he was on campus. And Quinn is, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, probably the most arm-talented quarterback I've ever seen in high school. I don't think that the day we spent at South Lake Carroll would have given you any other impression when you saw him for the first time as a high school junior who was just absolutely slinging it around at practice in a scrimmage there for the Dragons. They are the Dragons, right? Something like that. I don't know what
they were green. I remember
they were
that.
green. They look green. They look dragony. And I've seen a lot of talk about Quinn. Obviously, a lot of Ohio State media members were asking of Ryan Day and other Ohio State members about Quinn. But to me, it feels like it's something that is discussed just because it has to be, but not because it's particularly relevant anymore. It's been 3 years since he's been gone. Ohio State is not just beyond Kyle McCord, who was also waiting behind CJ Stroud with Quinn, but they're on to Will Howard. So, I mean, it's 3 quarterbacks later. Quinn's career at Texas, I think, has been good. Maybe is it what people have expected? Probably not. But he was never a flawless quarterback before. He was a perfect high school football recruit, according to the national analysts who do that sort of stuff. But the discussion about him and Ohio State and are there hard feelings or the good feelings, like it's kind of weird to me. I've seen Texas websites try to pose this as a get back game or a payback game for Quinn Ewers, and I don't know what he could possibly have ill will toward Ohio State about, but I guess whatever motivates you.
Well, I think that part is relevant to discuss because I don't think that either side harbors any ill will to the other, honestly, because there have been all sorts of conversations. And the reason that I'm bringing it up in this way is that we've got a lot of questions over the time, whether that's road breaks, whether that's on subtext, whether that's anywhere else. It's like, well, what would have been better to have Quinn Ewers in this situation or Kyle McCord, or could they have done anything different to keep Quinn Ewers? If you go back to the actual moment that the decisions had to be made, I don't think that Quinn Ewers could have done anything differently, and I don't think Ohio State could have done anything differently. I think both parties put the cards on the table, did everything that they possibly could to make a tough situation work. Quinn wanted to play for Ryan Day, made that very clear. Wanted to play at Ohio State, had the Ewers family had, land in Ohio, wanted to be around here. They were bought in with the program. You can even now to this day hear Quinn Ewers prepare to play Michigan and refer to them as the team up north, as he did earlier this season. I think that part of him always existed. And I think Ryan Day wanted to coach him when he tells stories about offering him as an 8th grader. And I remember being in the Woody on that day when that happened and being like, I'm very curious what it is that Ryan Day sees in a at that time scrawny little kid that is so impressive that he must have that to work with down the road. And he talked a little bit more about this on whatever day it was, Friday. And he has multiple times over the last couple of years. It was the release and the accuracy and the processing and the potential that he could see there. Everybody wanted that to work out. What happened was a historical confluence of events. If the state of Texas had allowed Quinn Ewers to collect NIL money as a senior in high school, he would have stayed there. He was pressed into a situation where, because of the perfect recruiting profile that you mentioned, Berm, he was at the forefront of a changing Wild West landscape where there were even fewer rules, if you can imagine, then than there are now. And he really had his hands tied to both go to college and start earning, having these contracts locked in place, and then at the end of his first season, sitting behind a Heisman Trophy finalist and potentially facing some challenges to collect on the NIL earnings in the following year. I didn't see all the contracts. The lawyer agent that represented him certainly wanted me to until I actually asked to see them as part of my reporting at the time when Quinn entered the transfer portal. But all this is to say, I don't think anyone did anything wrong, and I don't think that they have any negative feelings about the way it worked out. It was just the sad reality or positive reality, whatever. However, it was just the reality of the situation, and you had no choice but to handle it the way that everybody did.
Yeah, and it's also worth remembering that when Quinn had originally committed to Texas earlier in his career, it was to Tom Herman. That whole administration collapsed upon itself. That he had no idea what they were going to be as a program under Steve Sarkisian. It was such a weird combination of events, as you mentioned. And the bottom line for Quinn and for Ohio State is that I think it worked out. And the transfer portal is a part of college football now that we can lament and go over with a fine-tooth comb about all the pluses and minuses of it. But much like the Kyle McCord situation this season, I think the goal is that when a player leaves a program is that it works out best for both sides. And I think Kyle McCord's departure worked out better for Kyle McCord and for Ohio State. And I think Quinn's did, because Ohio State wasn't put in a position where they had to deal with and this is not going to say it would have been a circus based on Quinn or his family or anybody else, but the circus of, what Texas is dealing with right now with Arch Manning. Like, CJ Stroud didn't have to worry about that in 2022. Ohio State didn't have to worry about, are you playing Quinn enough? Are you doing this enough? What's going to happen here? As you said, he left high school early because he couldn't capitalize on NIL in Texas. And Ohio State never wanted him to enroll early. They never wanted him to enroll in August of 2021. Like, it was something that they had no choice but to say, okay, if this is what you have to do. And once that happened, we sort of knew from that moment, like, there was very likely to be a series of hiccups that would hinder his development even at Ohio State from that point forward. I don't think anyone expected him to be gone 4 months later. But it was easy to see when he got there that Quinn was homesick, didn't feel like he was really getting out of it what he wanted, because he just couldn't. He couldn't get the time with the coaches that he needed. He couldn't get the development that he needed with Ryan Day, because at that point, Ohio State was 3 weeks into the football season by the time Quinn was even ready to pick up a ball. So it's just anybody who's trying to make it a personal vendetta on either side at this point, I think, is just looking for clicks. Quinn said he doesn't regret any decision he made. I don't think Ohio State regrets any decision they made about it either. Again, he had committed to Corey Dennis. Like, he probably wouldn't have been there anymore anyway. So, it's funny. I don't know that Ohio State's the team that's willing to pay him $6 million to transfer it next year, but wouldn't it be wild? Let's play the wild hypothesis game.
Come on, man.
As we talked about, the loser of the Ohio State-Texas game is going to be playing that team again in their next game. It's going to be a rematch. What if Quinn Ewers decided against the NFL because he's not getting a first-round grade or whatever, and transferred to Ohio State and started against Texas and Arch Manning? Wouldn't that be amazing?
Well, that would be a whole series of podcasts, Berm. I think it's more likely that you pay me for the bets that you lost betting on Quinn Ewers to be a first-round draft pick and Heisman Trophy winner a year ago than it is Ohio State to pay him $6 million.
My internet is not working. There's a lot of I heard a lot of just garbled talk there. But yeah, Quinn, I liked Quinn. He was on Bermanology a couple times. Obviously, we went down there and saw him. I enjoyed getting to know him and his family. I thought they were for good people. It's just a situation that happened at the weirdest time possible for college football, and it's worked out well for everyone. And now they get to play each other on Friday. This technically would be a Thursday, Three Thoughts Thursday, because we're 2 days away from the game, right? So this is we're morphing.
No. We still have that tomorrow. Don't worry about that, Berm. That's covered. Man. Because I am going to talk about the actual matchup and the implications here for Quinn Ewers, and I think I'm trying not to. I want to be fair. I've been critical of Quinn Ewers because I think you can be when you watch him objectively. You see the turnovers, you see the amount of sacks that he takes, you see the completion percentage, all of these things, like just head to head against Will Howard. Will Howard has thrown for more yards. He's thrown for more touchdowns. He's thrown fewer interceptions. He's got a higher completion percentage, and he's taken fewer sacks. All those things would tell you that, or should tell you, one of these quarterbacks has a better reputation than the other, but it doesn't match up because I think there is still some element that goes back even to the first time that I saw Quinn Ewers, which you just mentioned, us going to his spring practice, and I saw him make throws in a high school scrimmage that had my jaw on the floor. And I was like, well, maybe this guy really is Patrick Mahomes. And you know me, I'm not the kind of person that likes to jump to those conclusions about high school players in scrimmages or 7-on-7. And I did that even when it was like very obvious, like Jeremiah Smith, that it was special. But I thought that Quinn Ewers was in that boat as well, which has made me feel like the career so far has been underwhelming. And I maybe watch him with too critical of an eye, if that is fair. I want to be fair to him going into this matchup, but I see opportunities in every game where it just looks like he's not tapping fully into the potential that I saw when he was in high school. And that's what makes me think that Ohio State has a quarterback advantage in this game with Will Howard and what he's done this year, and that its defense could be really in an advantageous position to defend Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, but guys like Quinn, number one, I think he knew one of the reasons he wanted to go to Ohio State out of high school is because he knew that from a mechanical standpoint, he had areas where he could get significantly better. And I don't know that he's gotten significantly better at Texas under that training. Steve Sarkisian is a really brilliant offensive mind and a great play caller and all those things, but he is not a quarterback. He is not a quarterback mechanical fixer. And so I think that that's one of the reasons why Quinn wanted to play at Ohio State, because he felt he could get those improvements. Those things that haven't improved still translate to sometimes the ball being floated a little bit. Sometimes that is a result of him just being supremely confident with his arm talent, which he should be because it's so next level. And it's just this weird combination. Ohio State certainly is in a position to take advantage of that. But so are you saying you don't agree with Emmanuel Acho, Austin? Well, who said Ohio State has the worst quarterback remaining, period. They have the worst quarterback remaining in Will Howard. I can confidently say that.
I don't know why anyone would say it that confidently. So, I think it's one of the most ludicrous statements that I've heard all year. I'll say I'm quite confident in saying that, period. What would you be basing that off of? Statistically, as I just said, even in a head-to-head matchup for the Cotton Bowl alone, forgetting about what's going to happen in the Orange Bowl and those two quarterbacks, Will Howard has outpaced Quinn Ewers in every single category that matters. So why is he demonstrably worse? Because he was a 3-star recruit who went to Kansas State and was not a perfect recruit according to all the systems and 5 stars a year ago. I think some of this stuff doesn't match up with reality, or you're just not paying attention, or you don't want to. But we've seen Drew Allar be absolutely befuddled in multiple meetings against Ohio State in the last 2 years. So those are the games that I know best, but I've certainly watched Drew Allar in other games, and he's looked really good in others and really poor in some. And Riley Leonard was also in the same conversation for Ohio State to evaluate, and they wanted to talk to him a year ago when he was leaving Duke, but they felt pretty strongly about Will Howard over Riley Leonard, and I think that some of the passing deficiencies that he's shown this year have borne that out.
Yeah.
Anyone can make whatever rankings they want, 1 through 4. And if they think Will Howard is 4th, so be it. Like, that's great. Everyone gets their own opinion. To say that he is clearly the worst of the 4, I think is pure madness. And I don't know what you could possibly be basing that off of.
No, I don't either. That's someone who I don't think has watched any Ohio State football other than maybe the Michigan game. And correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Emmanuel Acho go to Texas?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, okay. Well, that explains a lot of that. So no, it is funny. I mean,
well, then he's not getting the memo from Sark that you're supposed to be bumping up Ohio State as the greatest team of all time.
What's weird, I think, about the whole thing is that there's people who will instinctively go to that argument because Will Howard has the lowest recruiting pedigree of this group. People who haven't watched him, I understand, based on just because, hey, he was a lower rated recruit. He's a transfer from Kansas State, and he was benched at Kansas State for Avery Johnson, and he clearly wasn't good enough to play at Kansas State. But anybody, the truth is that there's certainly still a segment of the Ohio State fan base that is on the fence about Will Howard and isn't convinced that he's actually any better than Kyle McCord or anyone else. So I guess beauty is in the eye of the beer holder, as it always is. And I think in this case, Mr. Acho's had a few too many. But the response to Will Howard from his Ohio State teammates is all you need to know about what people think about him. And is the truth is, when it comes to Quinn, like, he's loved by his teammates. And, I think last week when Ryan Day was talking about Quinn, he said that, there's still people with good relationships with him in the building. I don't think he was talking necessarily about staff, because I don't think that anybody on the staff is still talking to Quinn Ewers. But the players certainly are, and guys like Jack Sawyer, who he was roommates with, and like those guys are certainly close with him. And so everyone's going to protect their own guy. And Will Howard certainly doesn't need us to go white knight for him against Emmanuel Acho's allegation. But it seems like just a weird thing to say based on the fact that, as you said, if you go statistic by statistic, I think it's almost inarguable that Will Howard is the best quarterback in the Final Four remaining.
Yeah, and I mean, and he is on Friday night. Now, he has to be the best quarterback on Friday night against Quinn Ewers for this conversation to even matter, at least in terms of Will Howard's Ohio State legacy, or even, to continue talking about what Quinn Ewers could have done for the Buckeyes. I mean, that's all going to be settled on the field on Friday night, which I think is really cool. But I trying to, turn that into personal animus, or that like Lathan Ransom or Cody Simon want to hit this guy harder because he left. I just don't buy into that part. This is, you can separate the college football playoff and the national championship implications and just purely playing Texas. These are two of the most prestigious brands in all of college football. These are the two most profitable athletic departments in the country. Like, it should be appreciated on its own. And I think it is by the people involved. Yeah. And I'm not saying that it's even being treated differently by many people outside of it. It's just that there have been a ton of questions about the intrigue around Quinn Ewers. And you and I have a unique perspective, not the only one by any stretch of the imagination, maybe even not the most insightful, but it's pretty unique, the journey that, and the peaks and the windows into it that we had. I think some of the parts of this are being discussed unfairly and without enough knowledge about what actually happened. And to say any of the things that Quinn Ewers didn't appreciate Ryan Day, didn't appreciate the program, whatever, or that he hates Ohio State or vice versa, I think is naive and wrong.
Yeah, but I mean, that's sports media today. It's half a story. It's a how can we create drama? How do we generate clicks? And it is what it is. The bottom line is, when Quinn left Ohio State, it seemed like there's always like this rallying around your side in these sort of events. And we cover Ohio State. So certainly a lot of the perspective we received was from the Buckeyes' point of view. I don't think that their stance on it has changed ever since he left, which was Quinn wanted to play and he wasn't gonna in 2022. And so it really left no choice. And I think at the core of it, Quinn has pretty much said the same thing, but he just wanted to get closer to home and had a chance to get on the field faster. And for a kid who really did like Ohio State and wanted to play for Ryan Day, he also grew up just loving Texas. And when everything changed under Steve Sarkisian after that first year of Coach Sark, like it made perfect sense for him to go there. Again, the unfortunate thing is that this would have never happened in normal football. And the simple truth is that if Quinn Ewers didn't reclassify and skip his senior year and enroll early at Ohio State, I would be willing to put $1.50 or $1.75 bet that he would not have signed with Ohio State in December of 2021 and would have flipped to Texas before signing day. So it's like it wouldn't have changed much other than the fact that we now have this story that people want to talk about for 3 years, because he basically rented an Airbnb in Columbus for 4 months and got a cool uniform on the way out of town, or when he got to town.
You got to hand the football off 3 times.
Yeah, against Rutgers.
Was it? I thought it was Michigan State.
I don't know. Aren't Michigan State and Rutgers the same thing?
You would think, but I
like Quinn. I'm rooting for him to be successful down the road. I'm certainly rooting for him to have a very bad game on Friday.
Are you thinking that he will take an offer of $4 or $5 or $6 million to
No,
not from
I think
Ohio
he's.
State? Because I don't think the Buckeyes will be involved in that. Just neither do you. But
I fully
it
expect him
feels
going
like a
to the
more
NFL.
lucrative offer for him than the NFL, to be honest.
It does, but it's also college. I think college has run its course for him here. So I don't know that anything. I don't see that happening. Everyone that I still talk to in the Dallas and Texas area says that he is 100% going to the NFL. So,
yeah, it's just I'm intrigued by it because as far back ago as 6 weeks, there were people that were like, "Hey, did you know that Quinn might still want to be playing in college football next year because the offers are rolling in?" And like gives him more leverage. I think that'd be fascinating because I also agree with you. I didn't ever get the sense that Quinn Ewers was going to love playing in college. And I think that's the part where when I reflect back on meeting him and being at his high school and seeing him around his teammates, I don't know that I've ever seen him, whether that's on television or warming up for Ohio State games, if he ever had that same level of joy again. And again, I don't see every single moment. So it's not something, it's anecdotal for me.
yeah.
But
I mean,
he was thrust into the NIL situation from day one and had so many people around him saying, "You are a unicorn. You are Patrick Mahomes. You are going to be worth $200 million." He was professionalized, I think, before he had any desire to do that and before he was ready to do that. And that part of me like feels bad for him. And he doesn't need me to feel bad for him. And he's got more money than I may ever see already, just based on what he's earned in college. And all of that is great for him. But I just remember all the way all that played out. I thought,
yeah.
this really sucks for a kid who I don't think asked for any of it.
No, but we've seen that in other cases as well before NIL even started. I mean, that's my position on Tate Martell, that he was basically just absolutely sucked dry by the people around him that were counting on him to make their lives like the life of the rich and famous and to live a celebrity life. Quinn, from a quarterbacking standpoint, certainly has a higher ceiling than Tate ever did, the ability to throw the ball, et cetera. But I guess on one side of it, I think you can at least be glad that his family was able to capitalize on it and able to take care of and get taken care of. Because if the NIL space existed in 2016 when Tate Martell was going through his run as like 3-time national champion and Gatorade National Player of the Year, like Tate should. I look back on it like, man, Tate made a lot of people a lot of money and not him, and that's it sucks, but there is at least still the little ancillary benefit for the Ewers family. So I don't think it's gonna. I don't think. I still think he's going to be a late first, early second round pick in the NFL. I think he's going to be third or fourth quarterback taken, and that's a pretty good life if you can be a career NFL player, whether you're a backup or not.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we'll see what he can do against the Buckeyes on Friday night in the Cotton Bowl. Still on schedule for that. We'll check the forecast as we get down to Dallas and into the Lone Star State. Looks like it's improving a little bit. So as we heard on Tuesday from Ohio State, there had been no communications from the Cotton Bowl. Some of the discussion that was going on with ESPN, all of it indicated that the game would be played on Friday night as scheduled. Know that the ice and snow is difficult for the people in the DFW area to deal with. And if it arrives, they're going to have to account for that, of course. But I know Berm is constantly refreshing his weather apps, but
that's what I'm looking at now.
They're improving. It's improving pretty dramatically, in fact.
Well, the good news is that we're being proactive. By the time people wake up and watch this episode of the Podcast Daily, we'll already be in Dallas. We've decided to get out of town a little bit early, so that's a positive. And then hopefully everyone who's heading to the Lone Star State has an opportunity to do that safely and get into the Metroplex, because Ohio State's going to need as many of its fans there as possible on Friday. Yep.
So once we get there later today, Wednesday, we'll start. The Buckeyes arrive in the evening. We'll have some snap judgments. Bill Landis is already in Texas. We'll get some 3 thoughts for Thursday on the Podcast Daily and continue to ramp up the coverage on site down there in Dallas, getting ready for Ohio State versus Texas in the Cotton Bowl. It is the college football playoff semifinal. really looking forward to it. Can't wait to get down there, and then can't wait to talk to y'all once we do. For Jeremy Birmingham, I am Austin Ward. Thanks for joining us on a Wednesday edition of the Podcast Daily. We'll see you.